Now that we are living in this house and it is done, we're really excited to talk not just about the scientific superiority of all of the invisible dynamics of physics and chemistry and microbiology, but also about the beauty and how to make decisions that won't negatively affect those first things that are the primary things this channel is all about.
So there were decisions that we made to bring in things that would be beautiful and not off gas, would not create phthalates, that would not create those 6 classes of chemicals that we really want to avoid in our space. But along the way, we also learned there are limitations on materials and limitations in trying to get things in a timely manner sometimes too. And those were all things that needed to be considered too, because do you wait forever or do you get in your home? And we really wanted to be in our home. So there's also a give and a take, and I think some of the take is the ventilation, is taking things out. If you know bad things are happening, you've gotta be on top of your cleaning, you've gotta be on top of your ventilation. So those were also really important things that we considered when we brought in design elements.
So we're gonna start at the bottom and work our way up. Floor. You can find lots of different options for flooring.
Yeah, it's almost overwhelming how many different options of wood there is. There's wood that is actually made from tile. There's wood that's made from laminate, from vinyl, from engineered wood. And you really have to be careful when looking for your flooring, because your flooring is where your babies are gonna be, where your animals are gonna be, where your dust is gonna collect. And if that flooring is releasing things, that gets on their hands and into their mouths, and it's something that you really just wanna be cautious about.
Right, so as far as just the chemicals in this stuff, what you wanna be careful of is tile that's made to look like wood. Okay, it's tile. Like, we're gonna talk about tile, we have tile in this house. Vinyl that's made to look like wood, never. What you will find, by the way, if you look into this, you go online and you search for healthy flooring options, you'll find organizations that are all about how healthy vinyl flooring is. Look at who funds those organizations, who formed them, and you will find out that it's generally manufacturers of vinyl flooring.
Right.
So please be careful about what you believe online. The problem with vinyl flooring is it has phthalates, plasticizers in it that make it workable.
And the problem with phthalates is they are endocrine disruptors. And the one thing you do not want to be messing with in a human body are your hormones.
So you can lead to all kinds of health issues in kids, especially if you have kids. If you're 80 years old, get vinyl flooring. That's great, good for you. By the way, think about what a lot of the flooring in our schools is made from.
Right.
But also, at the same time, think about the fact that they clean schools every night. That's what you would have to do if you were really going to do this, and get those phthalates out. So the phthalates are big, nasty molecules that come up out of it for a long time, decades and decades and decades.
And some people might say, you know, Grace and Corbett, like, that is the affordable option, that's what I need to go with. And I'm going to just say, you're going to pay for it one way or another. So you're either going to pay for it in cleaning time to still keep your home healthy, or you might pay in the long run.
With health. So these big molecules come out and they glom onto the dust. They grab onto a particle and then they sit there. The particle then gets swept up by you when you walk by, or by your kid when they're crawling through or running around. And then it gets up in the air and you breathe it in, and now it becomes a part of your body.
Right.
And that's not good. So that's exactly how that works. That's why we say just totally avoid vinyl. It is not a consideration. We never consider it for even 1 second. Laminates and engineered wood products have glues, and they've got some things in them that are not wood. Wood is an easy thing. Now you're going to get people saying, oh, but wood emits formaldehyde itself naturally, just like humans do, you mean? So like the amounts that we're talking about, yes, this house has radon in it, for example, as another example, but the radon level is exactly the same as what it is outside. So that's 0.3 picocuries per liter.
Are you going to be able to have a perfectly clean, totally sanitized home? No.
Never. You can't do that. But you can make as good a choice as you can. So when you look at all the options that are trying to look like wood, and then you see that they actually do have wood, solid wood, let's just go with that.
Go with the wood. So, and there are a variety of options out there. We chose to go with hickory because We have a very special connection to a pecan tree, which we'll talk about later. But the hickory itself, you know, depending on the size of the planks, the grade that you're going to get, sometimes there's leftover batches. There are ways to find it and make it affordable. So for about 2,400 square feet, because we're not including the bathroom, that came out to about $25,000, and it was a worth it budget item for us.
So we got 4-inch wide planks, and they come in like very different sizes. Some of them are like this long.
But they're mostly about 10 feet.
Right, and so basically the 4-inch is where you step over into having to glue them down. So what we were able to do with just keeping it to 4-inch wide is that they could just nail it down without worrying about the glue and know that these things are going to be stable. We had to put down an underlayment because the flooring contractor was not comfortable moving ahead without some kind of an underlayment. We wanted one that was not a sheet of plastic or asphalt. We wanted to make sure that it was not going to add chemicals into the house and that it wasn't going to block moisture from going where it wants to go within this house, because of course the crawl space below us is conditioned space. So we wanted to make sure that if moisture wants to flow around the house, that it's able to do that all the way to the walls.
Absolutely. In the tiny house, we have a vapor barrier because we were connected directly to the outside under our floor.
But that was a mistake too, incidentally, on the tiny lab. And we had floor rot because of that thing. So you want to be very careful about, you know, these layers of plastic, know exactly where they're going.
Let's talk about our other mistake made with our flooring.
Moisture. So this house, if you've been following the build, is super airtight. It is probably the most airtight house in Atlanta until some partners of ours build something better up the street. But it's also very well dehumidified. So the temperature, because of the insulation, was controlled. The humidity, because of the dehumidifier, was controlled. And we still had the flooring contractor show up. He did a great job. He picked 30 random points on the subfloor, which is our OSB sheeting. That's the, you know, where you're going to lay everything on top of. And he did moisture tests at 30 random points. Took down all those numbers. He actually wrote them on the floor. Then picked 30 random pieces of wood out of the stacks and tested those. And they were supposed to be within a certain percentage of each other. And
but they were not.
Failed.
We failed it.
So he said, we can't do this right now. And that put us behind schedule once again. We were really hoping that we would all be done by Christmas and be able to move in. Right. And this was like very stressful. So we said, okay. So they restacked everything in this waffle pattern.
Right. And
then went away for 2 weeks to let it really come to equilibrium. Then came back and we passed. Tell me again, we're good?
Yes, we are good.
Awesome.
We are actually exactly where we need to be.
And so after that, they put everything in, everything was fine. I will say that you need to be very careful about temperature differences. For example, the makeup area unit, if we didn't have the heater, not only would Grace's feet get cold when we use the kitchen exhaust hood, but also we would be cracking this floor. And we literally heard that happening while we were ventilating because we were doing some finishing in here of other things.
Absolutely. That happened kind of around some really, really cold days. And again, we were just using the hood because we were finishing right here. And the cold air kind of swept pulled through under the door back there. And we heard a pow. And it was the finish pulling apart on the wood. So at first we were alarmed by that. But then our wood contractor was like, well, you know, it's wood.
In normal houses, that happens all the time.
All
this
the time.
house, yeah. So, and so that one thing happened, but we were finding that the finish is pulling apart. The finish is basically, it's not a sealant, but it is kind of a glue that went down. We picked, by the way, Bona is what our flooring contractor recommended as the best, like lowest impact on chemistry and chemicals in the house. And they put down, they've got 3 tiers, low tier, mid tier, and high tier. The mid tier, he put 2 coats of, and then he came along with the high tier and put 1 more coat of that. That's what they use in shopping malls. So we got a really durable floor out of it. The cure was done after a day or 2, and there's no more VOCs, and we know that because we monitor the total VOC content of the air in here. This is what it looks like. And we never get over 200 parts per billion of total VOCs. VOC, by the way, stands for?
Volatile organic compound.
Right. Compound means it's a group of molecules that are all bonded together. Organic means it has carbon as part of that molecule. And volatile means it has evaporated from a solid or a liquid state into a gas state.
And not all volatile organic compounds are scary. Like when I slice up a lemon to put in my glass of water, I'm literally creating VOCs.
If you can smell pizza or flowers, those are VOCs. we emit VOCs. So basically what we were able to find out is that the flooring finish emits almost no VOCs, especially considering that we live here and we emit tons of VOCs every day. So probably we are the main emitter of toxic stuff in this house at this point. So let's talk about the other flooring option that we picked, which is tile. Tile is great. Most non-reactive, most chemically non-additive thing that we could put in our house. A little bit hard to walk on, as mentioned, but in bathrooms, the tile conversation is so in-depth that we have a gigantic video about just that. So if you want to know more about tile in depth, and there is depth, go watch that video that I'm looking on screen right now. But suffice to say here, it's hard, it's water resistant, it's easy to clean. In a bathroom like this, we've got porcelain, we've got some of the pecan that we'll talk about in a minute. We have steel and glass, and my dad and I installed all the shower glass in this house, which was a pretty difficult thing. I don't recommend it for first timers, actually. Just easily cleanable surfaces. And that is really, when you're talking about air quality control, hard surfaces, the harder the better. More cleaning can happen because of the water resistance, and you don't need to be treating it like a princess all the time.
So as you can see, our kitchen is a long galley. We chose to actually put all of our storage down into cabinets. And I'm going to talk about cabinets for a second because we chose to go with a company that uses full solid plywood cabinetry, all 3/4 inch and no MDF. And I specifically wanted that. And this plywood is Pure Bond as well, which is formaldehyde free. There are more plywood companies getting onto that train. We had a good experience with Pure Bond when we built our tiny house, so I felt confidence in that. These cabinets were RTA, which means ready to assemble, and I gotta tell you, it was worth the savings and it was worth the effort. It was not that difficult to put together. The company we use, they're not a product partner, but I did appreciate their customer service and their help in design. They were Barker cabinets, and they are located in Oregon. We did have some COVID delays. We got them about 10 weeks later than we were expecting, but c'est la vie in the world of pandemic, right? They've held up really well. I went with the big old drawers because I have dehydrators and all kinds of fun, different kinds of cooking equipment that I really wanted to keep in my kitchen and not put in a pantry or separate cabinet elsewhere. So that is the story on our cabinets. The countertops, all right, countertops. There are so many options of countertops out there, and there are a lot of expensive options that I'm just not really entirely sure are worth it for their engineered aspects, for some of the concerns that the workers who cut and fabricate a lot of this are having with some of the dust and materials that are created from those engineered products. So what we decided to go with was just natural stone. So this is granite, and it was a hunt, but I did find it under $40 a square foot. And the really cool thing I also really liked about granite was the character in it. A lot of people don't like it because it's just all speckles. Those are some of the more affordable grades. But if you go to these huge, huge warehouses of just giant slabs, you can find slabs that were taken from the same location, and sometimes you can find these beautiful veins that were right beside each other. So these were right beside each other in the earth. And thank you, Earth, for providing this material. And I know it's gonna last a really long time. I mean, until this kitchen ever gets redone, which hopefully my family will love into the future for many years and never redo it. But I feel confident that it's not gonna chip. It's gonna be heat resistant, and if we ever need to repolish or seal it, we can. It's easy to do. When you find a piece of granite that actually has character in it, when you're at those big shops, word to the wise, go there with your installer after they have taken the template, and you can really line the template up right with the character pieces that you want. I don't think it's being too picky. You know, this is your home, this is your investment. You go ahead and say exactly what you want. But that was something that I didn't really know that you could do, and I'm so glad I did. So this right here was from a tree in my backyard in my childhood home. I was actually about this pregnant with our second daughter when this tree needed to come down. It was a 100-year-old pecan tree that was in my parents' backyard. And as a gift to us, kind of a housewarming gift, they had the tree milled for us. And it ended up informing a lot of our design decisions. And I love it because not only does it have this like wonderful natural feel, it's actually called wormwood, where you can like see where the bugs have traveled through it. As you know, I'm a gardener. I like the natural environment. And it's not only a conversation piece, but it is a real sentimental value for me. So we have used it in our trim around our doors, in our pantry area, all the windowsills. We're gonna build a library eventually out of it. We still have so much pecan wood, and I'm so excited to be using it. It's a hardwood, so that is something to keep in mind if you're gonna mill a wood. A hardwood is good, but it's also difficult to work with. You'll see it in our mudroom in just a second, and it's great because it just brings this beautiful accent. But again, you gotta like put your back into it to really make it come together.
Being a really hard wood did make it difficult for my dad to do most of the woodworking in this house. He's the woodworker in the family. He's got all the equipment and he's very precise about things. So all of this beautiful stuff and the pantry is my dad. A lot of the cabinets in here as well. So we thank him every day in our hearts and out loud because we live right near by them. But what we ordered from the miller was 2 different things that we really wanted, and then miscellaneous stuff. What you can see here is we got 1-inch sections. So we got 1-inch thick planks. What that means is that it can be milled down. So you basically have to plane it. After they cut it, you're gonna have to take off some on the top and some on the bottom because it's curved or warped or whatever. So that enables us to get a 3/4 inch piece of wood out of that 1 inch. And then you can mill it, plane it down even further and get 1/2 inch, and then you can do profiles where you've got a 1/2 inch piece next to a 3/4 inch piece, and you've got like a little reveal on it is what it's called. So this is the 3/4 inch pieces that came from that 1 inch raw material that they milled from the tree. Then we also asked for 3-inch thick slabs, which is what I'm sitting on and what this back piece is made of. And we especially were interested in live edge. So they said, hey, do you want us to get rid of that? And obviously, they knew the answer was probably no. So you can see a lot of this stuff, the amount of time it took for my parents and for me to pick out the worm, like, I don't even know what it is, but all this stuff is like bugs going through there, and then they leave these, I guess it's bug poop. It was hard. So you got to get in there with like a little chisel, or we tried to use some drill attachments that were like sanding brushes, and mostly it was just getting in there with a little chisel and taking it out with like a knife or something like that.
I think it's called cellulose excrement.
So anyway, we took that out and we're able to turn it into this after it's finished with polyurethane, like simple straight up satin, no color polyurethane. This is not stained at all. This is like the color of the wood. And then, after the 1-inch pieces, planks, and the 3-inch slabs, we asked for just whatever else they had. And so he just milled some, this is like 1.25 inch thick live edge piece. And it's live edge on both sides a lot of the time. And so it was really good for this kind of a thing, like a mudroom coat rack.
Now I want to tell you about a couple of other interior finishes that are super important. Your walls, your paint, and then your painted wall materials like the Ignite that you see that we used for our vocal booth and an extra bathroom here in the multi-purpose room, which is our studio and our dance studio and our training space, and it's just this big, beautiful room that we love. So behind me, I'll talk about that first. This is the Ignite, and it is from Thermery, and it is a heat treated. It is not reclaimed wood, so I know where exactly it came from. It is not burned, so I'm not worried about the charcoal like coming in to our living environment. Thermery has a variety of products. The gray siding on the outside of our house is also Thermery. You would never bring that inside your home. Why? Because it has fungicide in it, because it is meant to be outside and in moisture and combating that. You don't want to bring that inside your home. This is a special wood that is made for indoor and outside applications. It does not have that fungicide in it. At this point, we have also come to learn that Thermery is moving away from the fungicide altogether. The other two things I want to talk about are drywall and paint, and this is a convenience conversation. We did have to make some decisions that were pretty tough here. And you'll see why you don't really want to go with drywall because of certain things if you look at our podcast interview with Rob Dunn, who is the author of Never Home Alone and a bunch of other really great, interesting science microbiology books. But drywall, it's here. It's easy to find. You can find contractors who know how to deal with it. We actually really wanted to put magnesium oxide board, also known as MgO, in here. And there are some North American distributors, but again, it just was hard to get. It was hard to find. It was hard to keep in conversation with some of these companies. And at the end of the day, we just couldn't find the installers for it. The other thing with MgO is it's not regulated. A lot of it is made in China. You're not 100% sure what all is being put into it. So there are some limitations and drawbacks. And until we get over those hurdles, drywall was the option that we had to go for. But having good installers and having good ventilation helps us feel, and dehumidification helps us feel good about the decision. And again, it was a convenience factor. Do you want to get in your home or not? So that leads me to paint. Oh, paint. It is such a large world out there, and there are some really interesting clay paints and natural paints that apparently eat ozone and do some really cool things. But again, we had a hard time finding colors and the quantities that we needed, and also easy access, because what happens is you order 40 gallons and you think you've got it covered, and you're painting and then you look down and you go, oh gosh, we're gonna need 2 more gallons. Well, if you've had it all shipped in, you've probably gotten it in a similar batch, but now there's another batch being made too. So it's just sometimes a little bit easier to go up the street to the home goods store, to the paint store that are national chain. A lot of these larger companies are now doing very low VOC paints, which is a good thing, but a lot of those VOCs are being replaced with SVOCs. And what is an SVOC? Well, a VOC is a volatile organic compound, and an SVOC is a semi-volatile organic compound, which basically means that instead of the VOCs kind of releasing quickly, which is that stronger smell that you often smell, they release slowly. Okay, so that's something else to think about. And you're not going to get that big burst of VOCs, which is good, but you do need to, again, remember to, if you have a home that is sealed tight, then you ventilate right. So working with these lower VOC paints, we've been really happy with them, but we also are ventilating our house, and so we don't have that concern.
Just to remind you, the 3 rules of HomeChem. If you want a healthy home, number 1, don't bring bad stuff in. But number 2 is ventilate. The third thing is keep it dry. Now we're doing those number 2 and number 3, and you can see the videos about those in this channel. They've already been published. If you want to understand the interactions of just the chemicals and particles, aside from chemistry, the making babies part, you could think about an indoor space like a restaurant. There are chairs in the restaurant, and those are the surfaces, the surface area inside of homes. And just to review, the main difference between indoor spaces and outdoor spaces that makes a significant impact on the indoor pollution is that there is a massive amount of surface area inside.
So we're talking about a volume to surface ratio.
That's right. And so there are also people, and the people are the particles and chemicals that are in the space. Now, if you walk into this restaurant, what you would see is that there are people standing up and sitting down. Everybody's taking turns standing up, sitting down. That means that the chemicals and particles are ejecting into the air, and then they're settling onto surfaces. And as the humidity changes, as air flows in the room, as different things happen in the...
As children slide their bodies across your countertop.
True. Those chemicals and particles will reactivate into the air and then sit back down on the surfaces. And so what you can do, the strategies here, are you can take all the people out of the room. Inevitably, those chemicals and particles leaving the room are going to be replaced by a new crowd that's going to come in. So that's cleaning, right? We like that. You can also take away chairs. You could take away surfaces. But there's also another thing you can do, which is introduce more chairs. Because the main thing we're trying to do really for human health is to keep those particles and chemicals out of the air.
So we hope you've enjoyed this tour of our finishes in our home. There's still some more little things to come, but you'll see that big reveal in the last episode of Home Diagnosis, which will be coming out soon.
Please do make sure that you comment below if you have other things to add about interior finishes or other questions that we didn't get to in this video. Like and subscribe. Tune in next time.